Hello. Happy 420. Got you. All right. For tuning in. I guess that's the right term. Turn in. No, turn on. I can't remember. And drop out. Anyways, happy 420. Time to take a little break. 420, as we know, is the gematria of Ashan, which is smoke. And it's also an acrostic for Olam, Shana Nefesh, the world, the time, and soul, which is everything, which is all just smoke. So I wanted today to talk about authority. Who has authority? Just as talking about ritual. And by the way, I invite your questions about anything. I'll do my best as a Jewish elder to answer them. Anyways, the question of authority. Well, it's an easy question to answer. God has authority. It's God's authority. Because God is the king. And, the king speaks the king rules by what he says. I am the king. I said to do this. I said to do that. And everyone has to bow down to the king. Now, the king has become kind of a irrelevant idea, over the last few centuries. But it used to be that the king, and I'm sure in certain places where they still continue to have this idea of king, that it's something that in the Talmud it says if you see a king, even a non-Jewish king, run after him and observe the kind of relationship between the king and the people. And there's a reason for this, is that the king is only king because the people crown the king. So there's this initial and innate love between the king and the people. And also because the position of king is such a high thing that it is such a high thing, the idea of king, that that the creator has a special relationship with the king, and that because the king also loves the people, and the creator also loves the people, and in the same way, the creator is only king over creation if the people acknowledge, the creator is king. So if the king of the people acknowledges the creator as king, then the king, then the human king, he acts as an intermediary between the people and God. Now, this doesn't mean that the king can speak in the place of God, but we trust the king. The subjects trust the king because the king is only a king if the subjects love and crown the king to be king, and therefore, in the place of king, that the king can pray for the whole country, whereas individuals also pray for the country, but it's more, you're not so much in a position to do that. The one who is in a position, who has that position of taking care of God's people, So he's going to have more communication, and of course, what the king says is final. So that's one type of authority. It's an authority drawn from the heavens. There's many stories of people taking a place of high power like that, where they're about to step into it, and they say, it's not me. I don't have a soul for this. So, uh, it, it's a very high and spiritual thing. And for thousands of years, I mean, people lived with this idea of king because, the king, again, is only king because the people loves the king. And therefore the king wants to do, it's a dual relationship, a symbiotic relationship. Each one wants to love the other. And that's how the country is strong. Now, our country, the United States of America, I shouldn't say our country, is going out all over. My country, the United States of America, I was born and raised here. My grandparents are immigrants, came from the Ukraine. And but America, is a very special country in that it has people from all over the world, really like a little world here in America. And we're the first country to, to want to be independent of a king. There was the King of England, and we didn't want to be connected. We wanted to make our own decisions. We wanted to be independent. And so the founding fathers of America, a couple of hundred years, like 250 years ago, they sat down to write the Constitution. And they relied a lot upon the Enlightenment, a philosophical movement of that time, and tried to make a way to have the authority in the people by a representative type of situation, because it wasn't possible to have everyone, doing everything all the time. You had to have people who, were representing them. So, I just got a message here from. I'll have to lean over. Oh, I just got a message here. A very nice message from. I don't know if I should interrupt myself like this, but Terry sent me a very nice message saying that she's been a viewer since 2012. Wondered where I've gone. Well, I've gone a lot of places, and but now I'm here in LA. Happy to say. I was born in LA. I left when I was 3 and came back 70 years later. And Baruch Hashem, I'm doing pretty good here. Nice to see you in London, Terry. Thank you for watching. So so anyways, we made this Constitution. We were the first country to break away from royalty and create our own system. And it certainly has had many flaws in it. And one of the flaws is that the rich people basically write the laws. And when it got later, it's the corporations, they write these laws. And they're very long, very intricate laws that the lawyers know what they're getting. And they write them in ways where they can, give things to the people that they want. Like when they first started giving this money out for, to help people, Trump did. They put out this thing, give to all the small businesses. So who jumps in? The Catholic Church. They say, we're a business selling heaven, man. You got to give us money. Gave them $1.5 billion. And why? Because they established themselves as an authority. And so, this is not and it's interesting because, the authority is the authority of Rome. And Rome used to be under the authority of a king. And it's interesting that the last, the pontiff, there was an ancient pontiff, went back like hundreds of years before Rome. Pontiff was a person who would decide what what ritual would do. And the last ancient pontiff was Julius Caesar. Before he became Caesar, he was the pontiff, and he decided what people would do. And then you connect this, with the Sadducees, and the Sadducees were Jewish rebels, spiritual rebels, people who thought that Israel should be a state like any other state. And so these two people made a collaboration. And in our time, before our eyes, that collaboration has taken on an interesting depiction between the blonde Trump and the Jewish guy, Jared. See, the way Jared and Blondie got together is she had to convert. Her father's Catholic. I don't know what her mother is, and in order to marry a Jewish man, because the law is if a man marries someone not Jewish, it's just not considered a marriage. And so in order to marry a Jewish man, and a Jewish child is one who's born from a Jewish mother. So therefore, the person, if they're not Jewish, has to convert, but you're not allowed to convert for marriage. In other words, if a person converts to be Jewish, then it should be because they have a Jewish soul, and they feel it's incumbent upon them to do the 613 commandments. That's the only reason to convert. So I just think it's so interesting that that Blondie, see, she's become famous for her Goya pose, with the Goya beans. And Goya means in Hebrew, I'm not a Jewish woman. A Goya is a not Jewish man, and a Goya is a not Jewish woman. And her husband, so he's making all this noise as he's making peace in the Middle East, but he's really just doing business. He's going there and he's showing people how they can make a lot of money if they'll just do this, this, and this, and who needs war. And again, this has nothing, this is just Roman bullshit in the Middle East. And because the Middle East is made up of the two Semitic peoples, the Jewish and the Arab peoples. We are the Semitic peoples. We are the people of prophecy. We are prophetic peoples. There are many prophetic people. There are many prophets throughout peoples. It's not just us. But what makes us different is that we are the direct descendants from Abraham, and each one was taught a language that is specific to, our people. In the beginning, we were just two children, but Abraham saw deep into who our, what our spirit is inside, and saw in Yishmael, the father of the Arabs, a very emotional child, and saw inside Yitzchak, a very intellectual child, and gave each one a language that is commensurate with that. That the Arab people have a language that's all really like very can't think of the word I want, expressive, full of like curves and curls, and and Hebrew is much more like block letters. There's some curls in it, but it's much more block letters. And because those are, the emotions tend to be more flamboyant, and thinking is more cooler and just kind of systematic. And each one has a language that therefore from Abraham, who was a great prophet, who certainly communed with God frequently. And much of that is written down in the Torah and, in the Quran. and venerated by both people, the father of our people, of our peoples, buried in Hebron, one of the four holy cities. And as a result, we have prophetic books, the Torah and the Quran. And as far as I know, there are no other prophetic books anywhere in the world, certainly not the Bible. And so the prophecy, that is the authority for the Jewish people and for the Arab people. This is the authority, is our book, and our books come from the prophet, and our prophet speaks the word of God from heaven. And that is our tradition. That's how we live. That's what's important to us. And, after the first few years of the Afghanistani war, they found a girl whose picture they had used to sell magazines, casualties of the war. And they decided they were going to do something good for her since they had exploited her. They exploited everyone, but they were going to do something good for her. And they told her she could go wherever she wanted in the world. And she said she wanted to go to Mecca. And they said, no, you don't understand. You could go to Disneyland, you could go to New York City, you could go to Maui, you could go to Australia, you could go anywhere. She says, well, I want to go to Mecca. And generally people, in the Middle East, certainly until they got modernized, that was their life. Their life was being the people of these books and being devoted to what it says to do in these books and try to be good people. And it wasn't about like having money, but it was more about, having, giving people's place to stay, hospitality, and being a good human being and helping people who are in difficulty, and particularly women and children. And that's what's written in our books. But unfortunately, Rome decided they wanted to conquer the world. And one of the ways of conquering the Middle East, because if the Jews and the Arabs were truly united as we should be, no one could conquer the Middle East. Nobody. And we would be strong people together, projecting these beautiful ideas out into the world, which is certainly what God intended. But, it says man plans and God laughs, and sometimes God plans and man laughs. And here we are in exile and hating our brothers and instead, following the rabbi with the church and have turned the Torah into a religion and are equally selling heaven and have set themselves up as an authority. And people feel that if you do what this authority tells you, so you're covered with God, because God made these dudes authority. You did what they said, so you're off the hook, which is not really true, I mean, if the rabbi says a piece of meat is kosher and it's not, you ate non-kosher meat. You didn't eat anything, just because the rabbi says kosher doesn't make the meat kosher. It's just his opinion. That's about as far as authority does. Authority cannot change, reality. Just because you're an authority, you can't say, well, it's like this, that's what Trump tried to do. He tried to be the authority. He's always saying what's good and what's bad. What's a good question? What's a stupid question? Like he's the authority. And particularly as sometimes if you have like a business or something, you have to have a head of the business, or if there's a legal problem, you have to have an authority. But when it comes to heaven, it comes to God, there's no authority. There are these books, and everyone is equally allowed and invited to read these books, the Torah and the Quran. Please read these books. And you can think whatever you want to think about them. Just read them. And they're just full of wisdom. And there's no authority that can tell you this or that. Even in the law, it says that sometimes you see someone doing this, it's just obviously wrong. You should whisper to him that, it's not really not what we do. But if he wants to keep doing it, that's his right. Unless you're hurting someone else, you have a right to do and to practice and to be however you want. I mean, certainly in the Torah there are many, many restrictions, the 613 commandments. And in the Quran, there are also restrictions on how one lives and what one should refrain from. Like both the Jews and the Arabs are not have nothing to do with pig. Just pig's the worst, man. But for the rest of the world, it's fine. It's just for us within our books and our tradition. It's not for us. And there are people in the world who I know just eat kosher, not because they're Jewish and not because they're trying to do a commandment, because they feel the meat is probably cleaner. Because the Jews are very careful, with the food, because what we eat becomes us. And since the 613 commandments mirror the 248 limbs of the body and the 365 connecting tissues, so therefore we're like the interior of the body, and we all know the interior of the body is much more sensitive than the exterior of the body. You can rub shit on your skin and maybe it'll do this or that, but you put a little tiny something inside your body and it can just drive you nuts. So so in authority, like in Torah, you have, it's not really an authority. Authority means that a person's really learned in a particular thing, but it's not like he can say something and that's the way it is. He's the authority. It's not like that. God gave us the Torah, gave it to each person to look into the Torah and live the Torah the way they want. And what does God want? God wants diversity. God doesn't want everyone doing the same thing because God likes new. And I think that's why God doesn't give us so long, is because, enough already. You get to a certain age, you start doing the same thing over and over again. And God says, enough. There's nothing new here in this dude. Cycle him out. You come back new, a little baby with open eyes, and oh, this is so wondrous. Oh, that God likes. Where everything's a wonder and where you're having a true emotion, where you're having a true idea, where you're really connecting with God, the Creator, who created us like this, and yes. So Terry sent me a question here. Let me read it. I'd love to hear what you know about the interaction with the ancient Druids in Britain with Israel in the past, if you know of any. Britain being here for land of the covenant. Yes, well, Britain is certainly a very interesting country. It's the only country I know of that has these crop circles, and maybe there's other places, I don't know. But and those crop circles are very trippy. They're like, each one is like a snowflake. It has its own particular geometry, and how each blade of grass is bent in a particular angle. And there's another thing. As far as I know, I mean, I don't know a lot of connection with Druid, but when they built the Tower of Babel, which is before Jewish, before the right after the flood, so they did it from four corners of the earth. And I think that I can't remember the name of it, but Stonehenge. I think Stonehenge was one of those places because it's very astronomical. And these guys, it says, were able to get themselves get their heads. This is what it says. They were able to get their heads 3 miles above the earth, and from there they could just go. They had enough momentum, they were free of gravity, and they could just go. And they were following along this highway through heaven, and it led them to a plane, and that plane is Mars. And because these two planets are really connected, they're called the two women who make man. That's why man is always talked about, like the predominant figure in these books, the Quran and the Torah, because that's what these two women made. They made man because they wanted to have sex. So the whole thing is trying to get man so he'll be like a strong, good man, because in the beginning he was, tested by God, and he wiped his hand on his woman. So that's why we had to go, down to the earth and become stronger. And that's what men are supposed to become. Unfortunately, in our times, men are particularly not strong. And one of the reasons is that the doctors and society and everything have decided that male masturbation is a good thing. And this is one of the reasons why men are particularly weak, because the strength of a man is to hold back. And if a man is going to masturbate every time he feels something, or every time he feels he can't hold back, then he's going to lose the power to hold back. And holding back is like, it's like holding back the bow, the string of the bow. The further you hold it back, the longer you can hold it, the further that bow is going to travel, the further the arrow is going to travel. And it's not the arrow that so much the woman wants, but she wants the power in the arrow. It's that power that she wants, that energy that she wants. That's why the law is, Jewish law is that if a woman is sick and wants to have sex, you should have sex with her. But if the man is sick and wants to have sex, women shouldn't have sex with him, because it depletes the man. But for the woman, it gives her more strength. So, but anyway, that's what I think. I think that's one of the 4 places in the world that the Tower of Babel was built from, and the main one is in it's a cemetery in Ur in Iraq, and it's a very interesting thing. In the very center of the cemetery, and this was discovered like 100 years ago by, I think, an archaeologist called Woolley. That and I don't know how they can do this, but after it's been like 4,000 years, and they found in the middle of this a party, like the most ancient place of this whole thing. They found a room and a party, and people with harps on their laps and holding wine, and suddenly, like that, they all died. No poison. And I believe that is because, see, the way they were able to maintain the Tower of Babel is to have this connection with the earth. And they were able to do it through song and incense and different ways. They were very adept people. And as a result, when God said, all right, you use this holy language to do this, I'll just mix the language up a bit. Just change the harmonics, change the density, the frequency, whatever, and suddenly no one could understand each other, and the whole thing broke like that. And I think that is the place that was the center of it. They were sort of command control, and they just died like instantly, and they, no one can figure out why. No poison, no nothing. And one could understand after that why they would then make it into a huge cemetery. It's like one of the most ancient cemeteries in the world. So, in the few minutes left, so I just wanted to say, in the few minutes left, that authority is with God, and a person is free to do whatever they want, but you have to know there's consequences. That's the main thing. And the other thing is, I have a website called dovidhouse.com, where my books are available. And if you'd like to support this program, then please go to my website and buy a book. My latest book is Sex, a Metaphor to History, Trump 777, and the 1,000 Years of Woman. So take that. I have other books also, Meditation in Time, Deciphering the Labyrinth of Life, short stories, The Other Side, a novel, A Price of Peace. And I have a bunch more books I really want to publish. That's why I've started this publishing company to publish all my books. I have 20 books, or 19 and a screenplay, something like that. 18 in a manuscript and a screenplay. And my new book that I'm working on, I haven't said anything about it, but I've just finished the first edit, is called Zohar, the far side, from the far side of the black hole. So anyways, please frequent my site, and thank you for your messages and for doing this with me. It's so hard to do it by yourself, but this makes it so much easier. And I'll be back, God willing, Monday at 4:20, Monday through Thursday at 4:20. I try to do this, and if you have questions, please submit your questions. I'll do my best to answer them. So with that, I want to say, see you later, man. Happy Shabbat. Stay high. Be good. Things are just getting better and better.